Welcome to the Blueprint Podcast, where we throw out the old blueprint so you can become who you were always meant to be. I'm your host, Jason Smith, and if you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button and share this podcast with your friends on social media and tag me in it at JBirdFit. Today, we're kicking off something new, solo episodes. I'll still be bringing on guests, but I also want to have these straight to the point episodes where I break down the things that matter most. The topics will come from your emails, DMs, comments, and the real conversations that are happening out in the world. With that, today we're talking about what happens when you start stepping into and speaking your truth, and acknowledging the discomfort, the criticism, and the projections that come along with it. I recently got a message on the Antera Society Instagram. If you don't know what that is, I will tell you how to find it at the end of this episode. I received a DM where someone questioned why I post what I post, why I wear what I wear, and why I bother to share my thoughts. They sprinkled in some passive aggression, threw in apology with a nervous emoji, and of course had a faceless and nameless account, which is pretty common these days and is the MO of someone who is deeply insecure within themselves and seeks to control others through their interactions. If they can get you to shift your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and take away from you your emotional well-being, they win for a moment. But like all dopamine hits, it's an itch that just never quite gets scratched. They're rarely satisfied, and neither are they satisfied in many areas of their lives. People with goals, dreams, hopes, desires, and purpose don't operate in this way, and those who do tend to have high levels of narcissism and not the healthy kind. So don't allow yourself to give away so freely your power, agency, choice, and emotion to those who seek to disrupt and destroy. If you engage, you will quickly find yourself in an unwinnable argument, disagreement, or conversation you never wanted to have to begin with. Here's the thing. This isn't about one random person. This is a pattern. Anytime you grow, anytime you express yourself, anytime you expand your presence out in the real world or virtually, you're going to trigger people who haven't given themselves the permission to do the same. They, like so many of us, are caught in the mass delusion and trapped behind a wall of their own limiting beliefs. And here's what I want you to understand. Number one, growth requires stepping into uncertainty. That usually happens when you hit your pain threshold plus one more step. Number two, expansion means creating internal capacity for discomfort. You are actively learning to stretch your capacity for the outer world, your inner world, and the perception of the world from others. Meaning, I can sit alongside of you in your discomfort while also feeling my own without detriment to myself or the fear of losing myself. That is capacity. Number three, other people's projections are a reflection of them and not you. People will hit you with some out-of-pocket stuff, and it's your job to then assess if that input is useful to you. If not, you can simply say, I can see how you would get here, but I disagree. Or maybe, just maybe, they could be right, and there's some useful information in there for you about you. Now, from that position, you get to respond appropriately in the context of that relationship. So today, we're breaking down the cost of growth, why uncertainty is a skill you have to build, how to handle projections without reacting or shrinking, and everybody's favorite, why faceless critics are the loudest, but the least important voices. Let's get into it. What is the cost of growth? The big question is, why does growth trigger other people? The main reason may not be so obvious as we sit here together in our own limitations. When you step up, you remind them of their own stagnation. You came from the same or similar place in life. You may even have more education than they do, but somehow they have, based on your outsider assessment and perspective, accomplished more than you have, or are living a life out loud while you keep yourself small out of fear of being seen or heard. There's a part of you that may be envious of what they achieved, and deep down, it exposed core wounds, but also knowing that you could be doing the same or similar thing if you were just doing all the things that they were doing. Following this thought pattern or distortion, you assume it was easy for them or they had help in some way. At some point, they found an easy button where the position they're in now looks so effortless, but you weren't paying attention to the past 5 or 10 years of their life because you didn't see them as doing better than you. And that by itself says a lot about you and what's happening internally and how you treat relationships. This may twist your mind a bit, but people don't actually hate on others. They hate the reflection of themselves that they see in them. You know, deep down, you haven't become the person you're capable of becoming, and seeing them live in their purpose reminds you of all the things that you're not doing. And this isn't to throw shade on you. This should inspire you to figure out what you're capable of. And for all of you, at some point in your life, you've touched it, you've tasted it, you were close to it, but there was a negative shift or a belief that got in the way, and you made a decision to stop or not even try to figure it out. And now you find yourself filled with resentment and contempt for those who believed that they could, so they did. And let's face it, they aren't special. Ask any of the people you admire, and they will tell you, I believed in myself, so I did. And they do it in spite of all the other people that didn't believe that they could. Another aspect of this is you growing means they can't ignore that they're not. This is why I share with you all the time that it all starts with you. When you shift, change, develop, grow, and expand, the world around you has to change. And if you do it consistently enough over long periods of time, that's when you start to see the actual growth. Now, you might not like all the changes that happen as people, places, and career paths may begin to fall away to make room for your new life. Those are the unintended consequences of growth. Some people stay, some go, and others may return one day when they have gone through their own journey of self discovery. And others, they go off into the sunset, never to be heard from again. You should count your blessings. So, what are some common reactions when you start to expand? People say things like, who do you think you are? Translation, you're making me question why I haven't done more. I feel less than, and it's touching a core wound of abandonment or not enoughness. You may also hear, why are you broadcasting? Translation, I'm uncomfortable that you're willing to be seen. I don't think I could do that, and I'm actually afraid for you. And that's an important distinction is they'll often say things that are out of pocket because they're trying to protect you from what they're afraid of actually happening. It's that worst case scenario. And the last one, why are you talking about this like you have it all figured out? Translation, I feel threatened by your confidence. If people only knew you could read a book, take a course, watch a YouTube video, listen to a podcast, and then deploy what you learned in real time to change your life, how different would your life actually be if you just invested a few minutes a day into yourself with all of those things? So, what does this really mean for you? If people are questioning you, it means you're visible. You are now living rent free in their minds. If they're trying to knock you down, it means you're rising. You're getting them to consider and shift their thought patterns, even if they can't admit it to themselves. Transformation is happening whether they like it or not. And that is always where they double down on their familiar problems rather than entertaining the unfamiliar good things or good potentials that are actually available to them. They just don't believe that they are, and they don't believe they deserve it. A popular quote in the personal development space is, if you're not catching criticism, you're probably not pushing your edge. And if we're being honest, all you really have to do in this modern era is breathe to catch some criticism. It's truly a mind virus. So let's break this down. I want you to ask yourself, and I think this is going to be helpful for many of you who are looking to generate a breakthrough in your life right now. Write these down, answer them, and then share your responses in your IG stories and tag me in them. The first question is, where am I shrinking because of other people's opinions? Number two, am I waiting for permission to be fully seen? And why? And number three, am I holding back because I don't want to make others uncomfortable? And you can often chase that back to childhood where you had family members that took up all the space in the room growing up, and playing small is what kept you safe. So here's a breakthrough mindset shift. And speaking of which, be sure to join the Breakthrough Mindset newsletter. I will be breaking down podcast episodes with actionable exercises and notes, answering comments and questions, and delivering next steps for growth that are bite sized and easy to digest. Listen up, because here's the shift. You either stay comfortable and invisible, or grow and deal with the discomfort of being seen. There's actually no way to grow without stepping into discomfort. And like my pastor always says, when confronted with a difficulty or challenge, I want you to ask yourself, should I stay or should I grow? And believe me, I know it's easier said than done. As we continue to shift, we are now creating capacity for uncertainty. And a common question is, why do people fear uncertainty? And a reality for many of us is that our nervous system is craving homeostasis in a chaotic world. But that nervous system activation is the sign and signal that you should be paying attention to. This is a great place to pause, assess, take inventory of what's happening around you, why you feel the way that you do, where is this coming from, where do I feel it in my body, and remind yourself that you have you. Remember, we cultivated capacity earlier in the episode, and coming up ahead, we'll give you some exercises to go along with it. Most people avoid taking action because they want a guarantee before they move. And wouldn't it be great if life came with guarantees? You'll make $1 million if you do these 10 things, guaranteed. Yet many of us still won't do those things or do what was necessary to make it happen because it's uncomfortable. And my favorite line and the most limiting statement anyone can ever make over themselves, it's a spell that you cast, is easier said than done. And now I'm defeated, I'm running away, and I'm not going to do anything. But the truth is, growth is the process of stepping into uncertainty and adapting. We live in a complex adaptive system that is always changing around you. And what is our response to that? Well, many of us carve out our little safe spaces that is just good enough for a sense of familiarity and stability, even when there is little to none of those things. And we'll call that comfort. We often default to what we know, even if it's not good for us. Moving forward, uncertainty is a skill that you develop, and I know it sounds weird. People think handling uncertainty is a personality trait. It's not. Think of it like a skill that you have to develop, hone, and manage. It's a skill that you build by increasing your capacity for discomfort. So how do you build capacity for uncertainty? Well, here's some exercises. Breath work and nervous system regulation is probably one of the most popular ones. Your body generally perceives uncertainty as danger, but things feel less dangerous the more familiar you become with that particular experience. Over time, when done consistently, you can cultivate the capacity within your nervous system for greater levels of uncertainty and risk without losing your sense of self or going off the rails. And you can try this simple box breathing. Inhale for 4 seconds in through the nose, hold for 4 seconds, exhale out the mouth for 4 seconds, and then hold for 4 seconds and repeat that. Number two, you can also use controlled exposure to discomfort. Instead of avoiding uncertainty, lean into it in small doses. An example of that, if public speaking scares you, start by speaking on a live with 5 people. You'll quickly figure out that 5 people is far more scary than 500. If posting content makes you anxious, Start with one post a day on a topic that's important to you. And if you're really ready to go for it, you can try cold therapy as a means of generating capacity. The more you expose yourself over longer periods of time, the stronger your capacity grows and the more depth you'll have in that particular area. Number three, the last mindset shift is from avoidance to expansion. Instead of asking, how do I eliminate discomfort, which equals avoidance, ask, how can I expand my ability to hold it, which equals expansion. Another popular quote for you is if you can't handle uncertainty, you can't handle growth because growth is always uncertain. And as we dive deeper, projection and the faceless critic. Why do people project? It's often subconscious and they aren't doing it intentionally. They're reacting to their own feelings about a topic, a person, or a situation. And when you recognize that, you'll begin to see that it has less to do with you and more to do with them. So on the surface, it appears like it's easier to attack someone else than to face their own limitations. But what you do to one person, you always end up doing to yourself. That's often why they stay stuck. They hit their pain threshold, but never reach that one more step. And when they finally hit that one more step, you'll find them begging for the answers and it becomes the awareness of you. If they can tear you down, they don't have to look in the mirror. And who wants to have an honest conversation with themselves about themselves? And all of this at the end of the day will only impact you if you allow it. Most of the statements they make, it is clear there is more going on in the background than anyone could ever really know, especially from an online perspective. When someone hits you with something unhinged, just think, whoa, regular everyday people don't act like that. They don't talk like that. And they certainly don't have conversations like that. No one ever runs up to you at the grocery store and berates you for what you look like or something you said because real life has consequences. So those people never allow themselves to be seen. They hide behind cat profile pictures, AI generated images. In their bio, they'll have Bible verses and other off the wall wackadoodle statements that they can fit in their bio. And the question is why? And it's because they don't really stand for anything. Not really. If they did, they would be in service to others instead of service to self. And the sad part is they often don't take risks and they don't create anything of value for themselves or for others. But they do have plenty of energy to criticize those who do. And within that, there is envy and admiration. How dare you come from nothing and become successful and do it by making your own way instead of following what everyone else is doing? You're supposed to have this type of job and make this much money like the rest of us. And that's certainly one way to live. What they don't get, or at least they're not really willing to consider, is that most people did do that and they discovered a purpose that allowed them to evolve out of that situation. And you can't really hate on that. There's a lot of respect there for rewiring your matrix. Remember, there is no spoon, and even Neil deGrasse Tyson can't argue that we aren't living in a simulation. That's just a little food for thought. If it is, can you change and rewrite your own code? So here's a quick breakdown for you. When someone projects on you, ask, does this person actually do anything meaningful? Are they putting themselves out there in the world to be seen? And this is probably the most important. Would you take advice from them? Which you most likely wouldn't, because again, they're not doing what you're willing to do. No one who does anything great puts others down. They tend to lift them up and get excited to share their knowledge with those who are actively seeking to make a difference in their lives and the lives of others. And this is a good rule to live by. If you wouldn't switch places with them, don't take their opinions seriously. And if everybody put their problems in a pile, I can almost guarantee you, you would still choose your problems. Another question that pops up is how to respond to this type of person. And the ultimate power move here is non reactivity. No response is a response. Value your energy and know that it's too valuable to waste on anonymous critics. Now, if someone confronts you who is an actual human and wants to have dialogue, I'm all for it. Discourse for the sake of discourse is a lost art these days. A lot of people are sitting there talking at one another instead of leading with curiosity and seeking to understand. And a common response to this type of person from me: spend some time with my content and you'll see the value, or not. Then I provide a link to the podcast or the self love challenge. Remember, you don't owe anyone anything, and you certainly don't owe them an explanation nor defense. And always block whomever you want, whenever you want. You have the freedom to choose who you interact with in the real world and on social media. So exercise your agency and your choice as it is in alignment with your goals, values, and standards. So then the question becomes, well, how do you handle projection like a pro? Number one, don't explain yourself. Number two, see it for what it is: pain disguised as criticism. And number three, use it as fuel if there's some truth in there for you. Remember, if it bothers you, there's something in there for you to learn. As we close out this episode, I do have some final words for you. Number one is to own your truth. And number two, step into the arena and allow yourself to become who you're capable of becoming. And if you're ready to step into expansion, growth, and abundance, now's the time. The 21-day Love and Abundance Challenge kicks off March 1st. This is your chance to reset, refocus, and step into your next level with some of your favorites. Spots are limited, so don't wait. And before you go, if you got value from this episode, be sure to rate and review the podcast, as it helps us get the message out to more people. Then share it with a friend or someone who needs to hear this today. That's it for today. Keep standing in your truth, keep stretching your capacity, and I'll see you inside the challenge. Let's get it.